last week at Donington, which boasted 2 fantastic races. And today we take a trip to upstate New York and here to Watkins Glen. My name is Zach Sweeney and I've not got Kelsey Gill alongside me in the commentary booth. Instead, I've got Darragh Thacker. Kieran Sharp, of course, still behind the scenes pushing the buttons for all of you at home watching along on the Sim Racing Collective YouTube channel. First and foremost, guys, we do have to apologise for some technical difficulties that have seen us only be able to stream to the single YouTube channel. But obviously, while you're here, make sure you like, subscribe, turn the bell on, all the snazzy stuff in the meantime. But yes, absolutely, it's going to be a lot of fun, I'm sure, here this evening, because Watkins Glen is a very fun circuit to indulge in. Into the 15 minutes of qualifying as it stands. And Darragh, first of all, welcome to the TSRC, and second of all, GT3s while Watkins Glen. I mean, it's a regular format, but probably for a good reason.
Absolutely, it's one of those combinations that you see a lot of the time because the racing can be incredibly good, and with the championship on the line, it'll be incredibly important in the 40 minutes of racing to see who can come out on top. Of course, we've got Bailey Thompson going for the title here this evening. It will be difficult, but it is possible to get it with one round to spare. But Watkins Glen, 40 minutes, it's got to be good.
You'd think so. Obviously, a mandatory pit stop along the way as well, which always sort of throws a little bit of a spanner into the works. It shouldn't be too big of an issue. The biggest talking point coming into today, however, is that Bailey Thompson, mathematically speaking, could win the championship, provided he doesn't have a drop round next week that sees him regain his 9th place, and then also Yuval Sharon regains his 4th place as such. So basically, he can essentially win the championship, just not win the championship, if you understand what I mean. He basically can win today, and then as long as he finishes above 9th next week, the championship will be his. So that's going to be something to keep our eye on. Of course, as it stands, the gap between Thompson and Sharon is 17 points. 85 to Thompson, 68 to Yuval Sharon, you get 30 points for a win. So Thompson needs to win with the fastest lap. Yuval Sharon needs to finish 4th. That will give Sharon 17 points to Thompson's 31, which will then be a 14-point gap that he then needs to get the 31-point gap going into the final round, which will basically give him the upper hand in terms of the championship fight. So that's going to be something to look out on. Of course, Thompson and Sharon have been 2 phenomenal drivers all season long. They have been at the absolute top notch of their game. So far this season, though, Sharon hasn't even taken a single victory in a normal race. Obviously, he won the first ever round, the evaluation race, all the way back a few weeks ago that we didn't even see. But since the season has started, he's not even won a single race, Darragh, and that speaks volumes about the level of consistency that he's shown.
Yeah, absolutely, and it really does show how competitive it's been near the front. I mean, he's been near the front, but not quite at the top. I mean, it's been Bailey Thompson winning quite a lot this season, but you've had others like Alexei Degani winning a couple of rounds ago as well. So it's not just Bailey Thompson who's been fighting, but he's just been in and around that area, and that is how you win a championship. You see it many times in real life racing and also in sim racing, that you don't actually have to win many races, if any, to win the title, just as long as you're at the front every single race. And Sharon has really been effective in doing that so far this season, and of course P2 already in the qualifying.
Yeah, showcasing some good pace we saw in the practice session, even quicker than Bailey Thompson himself. Of course, Thompson, in typical Thompson fashion, just turns it up to 11 in qualifying. Of course, there is still a long way to go, still 10 minutes left in this session, and sat as it stands on a 1:43.2, which I believe was the quickest lap time set in the practice session, so already topping that. As you can see, the track temperatures and the conditions are all optimum, so this should in theory be the quickest that these guys are able to go. There will still be a little bit of track evolution as time goes on. The track rub is in, so in theory, Darragh, we should start to see the people get quicker as time goes on.
Absolutely, and with a short qualifying session, 15 minutes isn't the longest that you can have. It's important to get the laps in early, even if the track will start ramping up. Of course, it's difficult to just put it on the one lap right at the end of the session if you've not got a time on the board already. And Bailey Thompson, half a second clear of the field, that is exactly what he has done. And it is on the rest of the field to try and gain that time back to him. But he looks very much in control. But of course, like you said, 10 minutes, the track can evolve that little bit more. We might see some of the rest try and come back towards him with an improved lap time. Alexei Degani very wide through the penultimate corner, but looks like he carried good enough speed through there.
Yep, and across the line, let's see what Alexei Degani can do. It's up onto the front row of the grid. A big jump from where he was to where he is. Mercedes looking menacingly quick, but it has to be said, look at that. We've got McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari, Porsche, Lamborghini, Honda. So 6 cars occupying the top 6 places as it stands in this qualifying session. That speaks very nicely at the level of balanced performance, how good it is, and how much better it is getting in ACC, I suppose. Still early doors, of course, but with how close the lap times are, and just the variation that we've got in this qualifying session at the moment, Darragh. So many sim racing championships out there, because of the balanced performance, have what is essentially just a one-make race. I remember commentating a championship where they had one category of, you know, Pro, Silver, Am. All of it was just BMWs. So thankfully, we've got a little bit of variation, because no one wants to just see a bog standard insert manufacturer here cup. We like to see that variation, and as it stands, we've definitely got that in full force at the moment.
Yeah, and it makes the tower on the left-hand side a little more colourful, doesn't it? Not just seeing a yellow and black of Ferrari or a black and gold of Lamborghini. You see quite a big variation of different cars, and they do look very nice indeed. I think this is Raya coming through the first sector. He looks splendid in that car, but he's got some time to find himself. Philip in this BMW, the Croatian, going well in P13 at the moment, but it's close in that pack, just below the top 10, about 1.4 seconds off of the fastest time so far, but it is close in the mid-pack. A little bit, the gap starts to open up a little bit near the front, but I think as you get further down the order, it's going to be very close per position, and it can be so important with one round to go to try and get that position just before the end of the season to get as many points to the board as you can.
Yeah, obviously in typical TSRC fashion, as we always have done across the 6 seasons that we've done the PC GT3 Series, they're only 6 rounds long. The only rounds that you can score points are the 6. So obviously, since season 3, I think, was when we introduced the sprint rounds, or it might have been season 2, one of the two. We've had sprint rounds, so of course there's been 7 races, but they still in total amount to the same amount of points over the course of the season. what I'm trying to get at here, Darragh, is you haven't got long in these seasons. You've got to maximize each and every single round because, yeah, you get a drop week and, as such, but still, each round, 100 divided by 6, just under 20% of the total points haul of the whole season. That is a big chunk for each individual week. So you have to make sure that you're on your game week in, week out. Otherwise, it's going to be near on impossible for you to recover any ground in the championship.
Yeah, and we see some championships where one bad week for one of the front runners can see them out of the contention for the title in the final rounds. You've got to be there every single week. And like we mentioned, that is exactly what the likes of Yuval Sharon have done. Being up there every single round. I think the dropped race so far is a P4. It just shows how good quality he's been all the way through the season. Why he's up near the front. And you will get some drivers who might be good at a certain track and might win a round, but then they're not near the sharp end come the end of the season because they just kind of middle it out during the rest of the racetrack. So the likes of Sharon and Thompson, they've been good all the way through, and that is why they're up near the front at the end. And you do get the drivers that have those good weeks every now and again, but if you're not near the sharp end every time in a short season like we have, you're not going to be fighting for the title. And that is what makes these kind of seasons incredibly interesting, because every race matters so much. You can't really afford a bad week at all.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, the drop week helps, but it gives you, that is your chance. You know, you mess that up, and that is, you know, you've done. You cannot mess up beyond that. So again, consistency is key, and well, Bailey Thompson has been very much consistent. Basically, he won round one, won round 2, dropped in round 3, had a penalty in the sprint race in round 4, and of course won the second sprint race in Donington. So we've had what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 races. He's won 3 of them, and the other 2 were very much anomalies. Of course, round 3 he had the stop-go penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Arguably his fault, but on pace he was going to win. So you know, had he not bottled it, he would have won that one. And of course, had he not driven into people in Donington, he probably would have won that one as well. So you can't obviously think in shoulda, coulda, woulda, because that's not how things go. It's motor racing at the end of the day. But the scary fact is that Bailey Thompson very much has had the capability to win every single race this season so far. So Yuval Sharon, if he does want to claw back some time and points, more importantly, in this championship, it has to start here. And right now, he's putting his best foot forward, as he is the only person so far to be able to take the challenge to Bailey Thompson in this qualifying.
Absolutely, and he does top the timesheets, of course. And we've still got those 4 different constructors in the top 4 at the moment, with Sharon, Thompson, Degani, and Zanki as well. Casali is the first of the second in make, if that makes any sense at all. So we see Wright, James Wright going P6 there on his lap, but there is still that little bit of a gap below the top 5. There's just about 3/10 between the top 5 and then a 4/10 gap back to James Wright. But like you said earlier, in the mid-pack it is incredibly close, with a few drivers on a 44.5 at the moment and a 44.6 as well. So they've got some time to find, but you know, a little bit of time could get them a couple more rows up the grid, which definitely would not be a bad thing at all. At this stage of the session. But getting a little squirmy there, Violetto through the penultimate corner. We'll have to see if he can improve on P20 with only about 4 minutes to go now.
Yeah, of course, closing into the final stages of this qualifying session. Thankfully, of course, for our iRacing specialists out there, and potentially our race room specialists as well. Unlike those sims, when this timer ticks 0, if you're on a lap, ACC is kind enough as to let you finish it. It's not going to kick you out of the session. It's not going to say tough luck, sunshine. You do get the opportunity to finish your lap. So much so that, you know, essentially, if you cross the line before it, you know, on 1 second, you can have your entire lap all to yourself, trying to build, of course, your best lap time to be able to improve your position. So in that regard for ACC, there's a little bit less pressure on Darragh, because you still do have that final chance at the end. So much so, you know, of course, if you do time your lap right, you know, you have to put yourself in that position first. But unlike iRacing or Race Room, where you have to be timed to a T, and if your final lap is your quick lap and it just so happens to end with the session, then you don't actually be able to reap the rewards of your pace. In ACC, it's got that contingency for you to actually finish that lap. So what I'm getting at is that there's a lot less pressure in a qualifying session in ACC, because you know you've got the time, you've got the chance in order to extract that potential.
Absolutely, and it's very difficult, isn't it? When the time hits zero, you've got to time it absolutely perfectly because you're not working to minute zero. You're working to minute, is it 120, 130? Depends on the lap time. But yeah, 2 minutes to go. I mean, you're gonna have to get on your laps pretty sharpish. But Van Wintergen just goes up into P7 there. That's a good lap for him, and he improves just behind Wright as well. And he's within that 1 second window of Sharon, and there are only 7 of them in it at the moment, which shows how well Sharon has gone so far. But it's testament to the title fight that they're in at the moment, that Sharon and Thompson have only got just under 700ths splitting them with very little time in the session to go. Drivers just starting the laps now will be finding the flag the next time they come around, and I think Ohart will be one of them as he comes through turn 1 now. So it's pretty much now or never for these guys.
Yeah, pretty much. So those that are starting the laps now, this will be their final run in qualifying. They have to make the most of it. Guillaume Mertage, the Swiss driver, up in 8th place as it stands, narrowly ahead of Luca Raya, of course, in the AMs, which, by the way, we haven't touched on it just yet, but the AM class are incredibly close. As it stands, after, of course, 4 rounds, we've got Manuel Leparati on 71, Mav Gardner on 66, Rorvik just in behind, 1 point behind on 65, Philippe himself 1 point behind that on 64, then Luca Raya at 9 on 55. So the ARMS are a lot closer than the pros, which is fantastic to see. Of course, they've had a very up and down season because they fill in the gaps between the pros as such. So they really do have to sort of week in, week out, just sort of pick up the scraps as such, maximise their points all if they can. And that, I think, is why we see them as, oh my goodness me, Bailey Thompson on his final run at 8 thousandths of a second off Yuval Sharon in that fight for pole. It's not good enough, and he doesn't take pole position. What can Degani do? Is it a cross line? Is it an improvement? No, but he still gets an opportunity to improve. But what I was saying about the AMs is that it's one long continuous point system. It's not pros score this, AMs score this. So the AMs, they sort of pick up the scraps as such. Their points positions are always closer because the biggest gap in the scoring is between a win and second place, which is 6 points. When you get to 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, etc., there's 1 point between each place. So if you're an AM and you and your rivals can only finish 9th, 10th, 11th, the only gaps you're getting on your rivals are a couple of points at a time, which I think really helps develop those close championships.
Absolutely, and it's great to see when those championships come down to the final race of the season, because even if the championships for the pro category are done by the final race, you've still got that AM championship to watch out for, and that is still important for some of those guys. Mariah going along nicely in this qualifying session. He's P11, so he won't be too disheartened. Ian Hall comes out of the final corner, will run to the line, and he will not improve on his position. But I think I did see, just as you were talking before, Zach, that Degani, I think, tapped the wall in the final corner. His rear end, I think, just stepped out into it. That may have lost him a little bit of time. But either way, the top two so close together. And 8 thousandths splitting the top two is only going to give us a good race, surely.
You'd think so, especially with Slipstream taking such a precedence here at Watkins Glen. The checker flag is out. The session is over. Can Yuval Sharon just rub salt in the wound for Bailey Thompson across the line? It's not an improvement. It's a 1 minute 43.182 as the pole time in arguably the most important race of the season for Yuval Sharon, who is trying his best to hang on to some championship hopes. Graham Kerr out there in 9th as it stands, needs just a narrow improvement to even see him up past Quinten van Wingden in 7th. Let's see what he can do in his final couple of corners in this qualifying session before we run you through the final grid order. But as you say, 8 thousandths of a second to the naked eye, Darragh, that is virtually invisible. We wouldn't be able to notice it one bit, so let's hope that we're in for a stellar race. Of course, after qualifying, as we touched on, Yuval Sharon is the one to take to the top step, but it was Bailey Thompson that took 2 purple sectors in his road to a front row. Alex Degani and Bruno Zanchi 3 and 4, with Francesco Cesali running off the top 5. James Wright keeps him company on row 3, with Quinten van Wingeden and De Oor in 7th and 8th. Then comes Graham Kerr and Mertage, the top 10. Luca Raya takes pole for the AMS and will start in 11th place alongside Hall on row 6. Then comes a rear striker, Philippe Rorvik, the top 15. Jack Sourfield, a very disappointing 16th after a very stellar run last time at Donington. Stuart Pryor, Leparati, Gardner, Blanchette, the top 20. Violato, Zampieri, P21 and P22 respectively. Passanisi, McGowan, Ghiardi, Miller, Sharon. This is, by the way, the quali bands. We've got Yotam, Sharon, Dominic Ligner, Borelli, Gameo, Brown, Cisco, Kiala, who all were unable to set a lap time in qualifying. So, Darragh, should be a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. 40 minutes of Watkins Glen. I mean, if my maths was slightly better, I'd be trying to work out how many laps we've got. But 40 minutes to go. There'll be quite a few of them. Quite a lot of overtaking opportunities around the lap. And Watkins Glen is one of those tracks where it is possible to go side by side for quite a large part of the lap. The track doesn't really close off apart from, you think, getting towards the final sector, turn 8, turn 9. But through the first sector, definitely, you can definitely run side by side through there. But single file, maybe through the chicane, we might see an instant through there. But we've just got to wait and see. It'll be a long race. Pit stop to think about as well. And then we'll have to see if we have a champion in all but name, or if we have to go to the final round.
Let's bring it on. Very much looking forward to, as we've said. Of course, I'm getting absolutely slated in the YouTube chat, as per, in all fairness. They seem to have taken a liking to you, Darragh, and I don't know if that's because
Rare.
you're right, or because the bar is on the floor. One of the two. Either way, take it as you will. Of course, it's Andrew and Stuart Pike. So, of course, those are two brothers that you will very much become accustomed to if you ever continue to do some commentary here on the TSRC. It depends how bored Kelsey gets after a few seasons. But yeah, in general, just get used to them. Just JPB in general, in fairness, you know, just get used to them because they're going to be there. They're just like that sore thumb. They just never leave, essentially, the two of them. And they've also got a couple of other people joining in on the YouTube banter as well, which we love, of course. All of you guys at home watching along, we do love to entertain. And yes, I've worked out your brothers. I knew it from last week. I just didn't want to entertain you enough as to work it out. And no, James didn't tell him. James doesn't even know who you are, Stuart Pike. He thought you were Stuart Gibbons. He thought you were a multitude of other people. And then you added me on Twitter, and then I knew it was you, and boom, there we go. I'm very clever. Anyway, we're about to start the formation up, of course, in just a couple moments' time, and then we'll be underway. Rolling start, of course, 2 by 2. There you can see Yuval Sharon leading them away on pole position. Formation laps, Darragh. How do you use them, and how do you best prepare yourself for a race?
Yeah, you just got to get the car into its optimum performance window, but you then got to think about how you're going to start the race, especially in the mid-pack. You've got to be very careful with where you place the car in turn 1 like this. It's a medium-speed turn 1. It's not a hard braking zone, but it's also not flat out through there, and you've got to be careful because we've seen many an instant before at turn 1 at Watkins Glen in both the real and the sim racing world. Through turn 2 and 3 up here, as we see them on their formation lap, it is very difficult to place your car perfectly because there are so many different variables. Someone drifting a little bit wide, just tapping a wall maybe as well. But yeah, it's got to be all about thinking about how you get the perfect start on this formation lap, and then we'll have to see how they get away.
Yep. So making sure, obviously, that they've got their tyres up to temperature, the brakes up to temperature themselves. Not literally up to temperature. I mean, it is October. It is a little bit cold. So much so that my poor little diesel Golf doesn't even start in the mornings anymore because the glow plugs just won't work. Well, they just don't want to crank, so it's fine. But yeah, it's chilly, so you've got. I suppose maybe you do want to get yourself a little bit toasty, raring to go for 40 minutes of action. Of course, there's a little bit of a grey area, though. The 40 minutes, obviously, 15-20 minutes is what I see as a sprint, but anything less than sort of 2.5 hours, I don't really see as an endurance. So 40 minutes is a bit of both. You have to have both attributes of both sprint racing and endurance racing if you want to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to be successful in all forms of racing to really put yourself near the front. I thought I just saw weird things going on that formation lap, but I think it's probably all just the game, isn't it? And not my screen. But yeah, they're all coming through. But I think looking forward to this one because turn 1 is going to be, I think, going to be critical because if you get a little bit wide and drop quite a few positions, it's going to find it a bit more difficult to get those positions back during the race. Around a track like Watkins Glen because there aren't as many harsh braking zones. It's more difficult in theory to make a move stick, but it's more possible to keep a move going throughout the lap. But third sector, I think, or middle sector, and they're nearing the end of the formation lap either way, and then we'll get going. But very much forward for this one.
Yeah, me too. And well, somehow over a year on, and I'm still not bored of these guys, and they're still not bored of me either. So fair enough. I suppose. Obviously, Andrew Pike. It'd be nice to see him out on the grid. It was fun slating him for the few seasons that he was a part of the grid. Same with Matt Acton as well. Also, Andrew, we haven't been given our factons. So how are we supposed to have our weekly segment of the factons without some facts? Anyway, we've got 40 minutes of racing ahead of us. Darragh, I know you're new. I know this is your first week. I know you've only seen a qualifying session, but who's coming out on top?
Oh, right. Well, I think every race that we've commentated together, I've got this wrong. So I don't want to jinx anybody. But I'm going to go with I'm going to go with Sharon. I just hope if I've jinxed him now, I'm sorry, frankly, but I'm going with Sharon.
You were doing so well until you mentioned the commentator's curse. It's fine. No, that's fine.
No. I didn't say it's a curse. I just said that I get it wrong.
Okay, that's
very
fine.
different.
No, whatever. Right, everyone. More conspiracy theories than James Parfit. Anyway, final corner. 40 minutes on the clock. Bailey Thompson, Yuval Sharon on the front row. Well, in fact, it's Yuval Sharon, Bailey Thompson. The front row, Bruno Zanchi, Alexi Degani in behind. Round number 5 of the Sim Racing Collective PC GT3 Series, season number 6. Here takes to Watkins Glen. We wait for the green flag to wave and we wait for Yuval Sharon to lead us into turn number 1. It's a fantastic jump on the left-hand side from the McLaren. The championship leader already catapulting himself into lead, but late on the brakes from the Ferrari. Makes a last-ditch effort to keep that pole position out in front, side by side between Bruno Zanchi and Alexi Degani as they run their way through turn number 2. And now the uphill climb through the S's. In fairness to Sharon, this might be more beneficial to him. He's got the slipstream as they run their way towards the bus stop.
Yeah, and how critical could this straight be in terms of the championship picture with Thompson leading Sharon, but Zanchi and Degani not too far behind either. But look at this, too wide in the mid-pack, below the front guys. But I think Thompson's just got through in the lead as they fly through the chicane for the first time. I think most of them have made it through very nicely indeed. We can't see anyone go around just yet as we come into this long right-hander for the first time. It is a very good and very important start for Thompson to be leading, and Sharon, it's got some work to do while they will battle it out in the mid-pack.
Yeah, and of course there's a lot of battling going on just ahead of Philippe. You've got Southfield and Hall battling away. Of course, you can see the Lamborghini of Southfield, the grey and the black, fighting his way forward. A fantastic weekend at Donington, in fairness, for the Ginger Ninja of Jack Southfield, and he is trying to finagle his way into contention. We've got James Wright and Orr fighting for, Cecilia, I should say, fighting for 5th place. Wright trying to go to the outside, but not quite able to, going into turn number 9, I believe. They then run their way into this uphill left-hander that not really much of an overtaken opportunity, but can manifest itself if there is the space to arrive. We round off lap number 1, and it's Bailey Thompson who got off to the best of starts. That jump on the left-hand side, whether it was the cleaner track or just managed to predict what Sharon was going to do, his experience there has meant that he's now taken an early lead.
Yeah, and it's nearly 1 second lead as he ends the first lap, which is absolutely mighty as they all come through towards turn 1 for the second time in this race. James Wright defending well, but is this going to be 3 wide down into turn 1? It's Yotam Sharon in 23rd. Of course, I think you mentioned he had a qualifying bounce, had to start a little bit further down the grid, but he looks like he's trying to make up moves early on through the field, and he's got Zampieri up next and Violetto as well to try and get through early on. But it's a tentative start from quite a few of these, and we'll have to see if they try and make moves later on during the race. But it doesn't look like Sharon's going, Yotam Sharon is holding back too much, because he is now up to 23rd.
He is, nicely done. Yeah, both Sharon's doing a really nice job so far. Jack Southfield already up to 10th. He's looking for 9th. There's Marie Stryker and Graham Kerr fighting for 11th just in behind. So, of course, Slipstream trying to keep everyone nice and close together, which is really promoting some awesome battling amongst these guys. Jack Southfield really getting himself in the mix quite nicely, it must be said. He's always one of those drivers to quite effectively work his way forwards. Have to give props to him. Sometimes that Lamborghini does seem to be working quite well for him. I don't think Southfield has had more than 1 season in the same car as of yet, or at least not consecutively anyway. So he's really good at showcasing his adaptability, and is right now looking very strong. Dominic Aligna to the inside of this right-hander. Of course, that's deja vu from a few seasons ago. He did almost the exact same move. Unfortunately, he was fighting for a little bit of a higher up position than 23rd. Of course, he's become quite renowned for doing that, starting at the back and seeing how far forward the reigning champion can take himself. He's up to 23rd, and Darragh, if there's one person you should look out for in these races, it's Dominic Ligner. He is rapid.
Noted. And I think actually he may have got past Yotam Sharon as well, because Sharon was running in 23rd and Illinger, I think, was behind, because I didn't mention him up in front. So he is progressing very well into the inside. At turn 1 he will try and go, but he just backs out of it late. But Sampieri, a little bit of a tight defensive line through turn 1, might not set him up well for this straight, and it doesn't at all, because to the inside comes Illinger, and he will just get through pretty much as they rise up the hill, 3-2 through 3, and he is now heading up into 22nd, I believe that is. If I'm correct, and the timing screen is just to update, but as they run down towards the chicane once again, he shall defend that position and do it very nicely, as there's even more fighting in the background as they all fight in these opening laps.
Yeah, these open laps are always hectic. These guys very much putting on a show. Maurice Stryker trying to go to the long way round of Jack Southfield. Not quite worked for him at all, though. He's found the barrier. Is there damage to the front right of that Honda NSX? He rejoins the circuit with a bruised ego and potentially a bruised car. Ooh, that's tough. And easily done on the outside, on the marbles, less grip. And, well, he found out the hard way as to why sometimes moves aren't really worth going for.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a bit of metal there in the middle sector. But we now see once again Zampieri not having the best of time. He's been overtaken by 1 this lap. Make that 2 as Sharon comes down the inside on him and makes himself back up into 23rd position. And there's that little train, isn't there? Violetta, Illinger and Sharon, who are looking to make their way through some of the AM drivers. But they are struggling a little bit at the moment. But we'll just see, like you said, how far up they can get if Illinger is someone to look out for, as they all come through to start yet another lap here. But yeah, looking very good for Bailey Thompson up at the front, as we see here. 1.2 seconds is the gap back to Yuval Sharon, but Yuval Sharon does have the fastest lap time, so he has got the pace behind him. It's just whether he can use it consistently to try and get back up towards that McLaren.
Yeah, that is the thing. I think he has been dented by that poor start and is now obviously on the back foot. Had he controlled the race and sort of led the first lap, I think we'd be seeing a wildly different Sharon right now. We'd be seeing a more composed, a more consistent, you know, a more able Sharon. But now obviously he's, as we said, started the race on the back foot, started with, you know, a feeling of negativity in the form that he's lost his pole position, he's panicking, he should have the pace, and oh my goodness me, Jack Southfield becoming a lawnmower momentarily on the outside of the hairpin left-hander that then leads you into, of course, the toe. And now obviously there's back straight towards the heel. But yeah, Sharon, he needs to regain his composure. He started this race on the behind, and is now obviously with a lot to lose. He's the one that needs to be making some gains in the championship, as to not ride everything on the final round. And ideally, the best way to do that is to win. Dominic Illigna moving his way up into P20, now ahead of Ryan Blanchette and into the points as well. He'll be taking a single point to his name. So slowly but surely is Dominic Illigna moving his way forward. But the good thing about Watkins Glen, Darragh, is, as we've said, the slipstream keeps everyone nice and close. So the next few cars are all lined up one after the other for it.
Absolutely, and he will try his best to get through. And Illigna, he is doing a good job at the moment in 21st position, but he's got some work to be doing as they all fly through. Philip, this time we're looking at the Croatian in the BMW. He is seemingly the lead driver at the moment. Raya, I think, was the highest on the grid, but he has slipped back somewhat. So Philip taking advantage of that, and he is doing relatively well to move up through the field. He's got a couple of drivers as well as a buffer to Pryor behind him. As we see, I think just up in front of this, Southfield and Kerr are going to go side by side. Yes, they are in towards. Oh, and there's contact there, and they're both around. Oh, and that is going to be a big contact with the wall. Not too sure how nice that car's going to be looking at the end of that, and Southfield facing the barrier. Not anymore, because he's now in the pit.
Welcome to your first ever Jack Southfield bottle. Let's take another look then, ladies and gentlemen, as they run their way into the bus stop. I mean, in fairness, there was more both of them could have done, and unfortunately Jack Southfield found the solid bit of that runoff as opposed to the Ferrari that didn't. It's, yeah, awkward, I'd say, but I definitely think avoidable. It's a straight line braking zone, and somehow they've just managed to merge into each other.
Yeah, it's not the ideal ending for that move, either of them, and I don't think either one would be happy with the other, even if there wasn't much in it. But of course, that is how you feel under the helmet. or just sitting on your chair while you're racing around. But I think this is Casali in P5 trying to find his way up into P4 ahead of Zanki. But there is a bit of a gap, isn't there, behind to right, a couple of seconds that is, back. Whilst Thompson, even though Sharon still does have that fastest lap, is pulling away still. That gap is now 1.7 seconds. And Degani is looking far more likely to overtake Sharon than Sharon is Thompson.
That's a problem, obviously, for obvious reasons. Manuel Leporati, the championship leader in the AMS at the moment, is sat 6th in class. Needs to be making some places up, especially when Felipe is up there in 10th place. It's going to be a huge chunk of points gained for the BMW driver in that championship battle. So Leporati needs to be moving forward. I'd say potentially the best way to do that is to allow Aligna through. He knows full well that Aligna will be making some progress, so don't defend, lift off, let him pass. Side by side, by the way, just ahead between Gardner and Rovik. You can see Gardner trying to get the up and under, but the Norwegian doing a really good job of holding station. All this is doing is allowing Aligna to get involved, and look at that. He's bold, he's brave, he's brilliant, and he's kept his foot in around the outside. Now as we run away into the chute, there's Ascend as well from the Porsche in the background, but Dominic Aligna, that took courage and fair play. He just knew the agility that he had in his car, and that Audi R8 flew around the outside.
Just as quickly as I managed to say his name correctly, he has made an absolutely fantastic move around the outside there. It just shows why you were right in saying that Leporati was better to let him pass, but we now see battling. I think this is now for P4. Casali and it's going around the outside. Is he? No, he's down the inside, sorry, in that Ferrari. And he's got that move nicely done on Zanki as they come through the final corner. He'll now have to try and work his way up to the top 3, and there is a bit of a gap between those guys at the moment. They're looking at more than a couple of seconds, looking at 3.5 or so for those guys to catch up, and I think it'll be important for Casali to try and pull them towards Degani, as the pit window is now open.
It is. For the next 20 minutes, they can choose to come into the pit lane. Of course, the only thing that's mandatory is refueling, and it's stuck fixed at 25 seconds. So it kind of doesn't really matter as to when you come in as such. I mean, to be fair, it's probably more beneficial to go longer, because that 25 seconds of fueling is going to mean you put less fuel well, you're going to be carrying less weight for longer, I suppose, and that's, you know, definitely a good thing. Dominic Aligna pulls to the right-hand side of Thomas Rovik and moves his way into 15th place, making some very, very good progress through. Sorry, I've just seen what Josh has put into the YouTube chat, and I can't repeat it for obvious reasons. 28 minutes left to go in this race, but yeah, pit window, it's not a major thing. It's just one of those things that it's there. It's a trivial thing. I think the most important thing about these pit stops, though, Darragh, is timing and its circumstance. If you can get yourself out of a battle and have some laps in clear air, you're going to be better off. If you're good at braking late for a pit lane, stopping in your pit box, all those small things, they can add up to a good couple of seconds. So it's more the reading the situation skill that is, you know, is going to allow you to benefit from the pit window.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's all those little nitty-gritty parts that you've got to get right. I mean, you know, you do things on a driving test that you don't normally do, but you've got to do stopping in the pit lane. I mean, you're not doing it regularly, but you're still going to do it. You're still going to get it absolutely right, otherwise you're going to lose a couple of seconds. No, you don't. But you know, you reverse back one length. Oh, whatever. Doesn't matter. My point bit. It's a manoeuvre. It's the best way to describe it. You've got to manoeuvre yourself into the pit lane, out of the pit lane. You've got to do it quickly. I mean, you don't want to do it quickly on a driving test. But, you know, it's something you've got to tick off and make sure the examiner knows that he's happy with it. And the examiner is yourself in this scenario, and you've got to get the time. That was an awful analogy.
Live and learn, Dave. It's fine. Anyway, Marie Stryker on the back of Hall. And yeah, analogies are one of those things that you think it sounds really good in your head until you say it out loud, and then you spend more time explaining the analogy than the analogy itself. And then you get yourself deeper and deeper, because you can't stop talking about said analogy, because you're in too deep at that point. You just have to dig and dig and dig until you find yourself at rock bottom, and then you realise that everyone in YouTube chat is completely slating you. It is a lot of fun. There are some times where you nail an analogy and it works and you feel so proud of yourself, and as your own examiner you tick that box of analogy as a commentator, because we have commentary exams and we aren't just a bunch of plebs that have absolutely no qualifications and just talk rubbish about pretend race cars. No, there's an extreme vetting process of clear examination and qualifications that we have to be a sim racing commentator. Well, I can guarantee you one of them isn't maths. Luca Raya to the inside of Stuart Pryor. That is going to be a very nice move indeed to move himself up to second in class, closing the gap bit by bit to Philippe. And with every position gained, is extra points on the table for Luca Raya, who is, of the bunch in that championship fight in the AMS, the one that needs to make the most.
Absolutely, and that'll be where they're fighting. Of course, when you've got Iligna coming through and the likes of Sharon and Violetto as well. I mean, they're not really fighting with them as hard. I mean, they can try and use those cars to get closer. We saw Leparati do a couple of laps ago, but of course, they're not really fighting with them in their championship, and they can just try and be a little bit smarter. We see Degani, I think that's making a move on Yuval Sharon at the front of the field for P2 there. And now he is the one trying to chase down Thompson, and that is awful news.
It is, yeah. And yeah, for what seemed to be so good, Sharon, there was so much potential coming into this race. It's not been extracted into much. Essentially, Thompson needs Sharon to spin and then Thompson to get the fastest lap if he wants to effectively win the championship. There is Jotum Sharon, potentially foreshadowing what his brother could do. He's had a big moment coming out of the exit of the bus stop chicane. I'm going to gather this is probably the most textbook thing you've ever seen, which is the car's bottomed out over the curbs and he spun. Of course, we're going to look at the replay going into the bus stop chicane. I would probably bet money on the fact that it's just too much curb. He's bottomed out. Yeah, a little bit there, round wide, bottomed out on the curb, destabilised the car, hit the grass, and around you go. Easily done. We've all done it.
Oh, I mean, it's done very well to keep that out of the wall on the inside as well. I mean, that could have ended much worse than it did, but he's got himself back going. Again, it's a bit of a nasty surprise for some of those drivers. You thought, oh, I would have liked to have taken the racing line through that corner, but sadly, they couldn't. And Sharon was the man in the way, and he's dropped down to P21. He's got some cars to get back through. As we go back up to Dominic Iligna, going to get that right someday. And he's got three amateurs to try and, well, 3 AM class drivers, they're not necessarily amateurs, to get through, to get up into the top 10, but he's made quick work of some of the rest in the bottom end of the top 10, and he's made very quick work of Pryor as he just flies through Pryor to the outside, making a little mistake, and through goes Iligna.
Nicely done, yeah, beautiful stuff from the Audi R8, and I would not be surprised at all if he takes a top 10 position in this race from what was effectively last. I don't know what he has in his Weetabix every morning, but it's definitely something that I would like. Probably something he's bought from an alleyway, but we speak of that, and Iligna has done the exact same thing essentially as what Jotum Sharon done the lap previous. He's found himself around, and all of that hard work he is seeing flash before his eyes. That's comedic timing if I've ever seen it.
Yeah, I want he's on a donut as well, just to whet our appetite as well, as he's going to reverse again and try and get back out of it once again, but it just benefits everyone else through the field, isn't it, really? Just giving him an extra position, but yeah, I mean, you didn't give him the nicest brief for that. He might watch that back and just be disappointed being bigged up and then having that happen to him, but you know, that's life. I'm sure he'll come back through. I mean, we've still got over half the race to go. I would not count him out. I'm still getting into the top 15 once again, because he has shown some fantastic pace. Just depends on how quickly he can get through the field once again. But we've got a nice battle here for It's for P5, P6. It's definitely near the front. Definitely not the top 3 because they are a long way away. But I should eat my words because I think this is 4th, 5th, and 6th, isn't it?
I think so. One thing you'll very quickly learn about ACC is that it doesn't like commentators at all. And you can probably tell that by the fact that time and tower refreshes every sector. Maybe it's a skill issue. Maybe we just need to get better at our job. Probably. But it is awkward, ACC, sometimes. Basically, you just have to look at who you are. You have to look at who's around them. And then you have to look at the time and tower and just, you know, guess, essentially. Philippe moves out of the way for Mertage. Or the BMW. I don't actually, no, that's not Philippe at all. It's just a random BMW. I think it's Sampieri in the background of the field. There you can see Graham Kell on the back of Ryan Blanchette. This is the fight for 16th place. And Graham Kerr picks his way through. Of course, now 14th after some pit stops happened, and Graham Kerr nicely up now into 14th place, doubling his points all effectively as Blanchette makes an absolute fluff of the bus stop chicane. Seems to be a fairly consistent mistake that people are making, and in fairness, that bus stop chicane, it's brutal.
Yeah, it is definitely. And then you can see just behind Graham Kerr, there's someone bouncing across the curb. Blanchette there in the McLaren as they come through. I couldn't really see very well, but you know, lots of battling still going on. I mean, with these mistakes happening, yes, they're dropping the drivers down the field, but they're dropping drivers down the field to where they shouldn't necessarily be, and they're picking it straight back up again. And they are really applying a little bit more pace and getting through a few more drivers. So it's still getting action all the way through, nearly halfway through. Time's flown by, as we still see battling at this point. I think this was for P18 and P19 then, between Cisco and Ciala. I spelled that right. I can't really see the name very well, but I think I've got that right. And if I've not, I'm sure I'll get slated in the chat for it. But these two going at it at the moment, P18, and they'll take every point they can get.
Yeah, I do love the variations in pronunciations that we have, because I'm fairly sure I'm right, and then you say it with such grace that it really makes me doubt myself a lot. And one of the first conversations we ever had to each other at Snetterton was you know, how we prepare pronunciations, and we just go through the entry list and we just say it, and somehow we have still ended up with different answers. I know, obviously, with pretty much every broadcast that we do together, we do run through the names, make sure we're in agreement with the pronunciations. We haven't for this one, and it has made for me very much doubting myself a lot, because I've always said Chiala, but now you've said it and it is Italian, it might well be Ciala. I'm not entirely sure, I'll be honest. I'm English and I'm a commentator, and those two things do not blend very well at all. As it stands, Bailey Thompson is now leaving the pit lane, of course, up over the crest, and a stop go 30 for D'Or, and that means he's sped of the pit lane. An easy mistake to make, it must be said, but one that comes with a costly sentence.
Yeah, well, I mean, in terms of pronunciation, the only one I'm really certain on are the anglicised ones and the French ones, thanks to my French A level. But you know, if if you say it with chest, it might be right and it might be wrong, but you know, gotta give it a go. Yeah, exactly.
Just go quick.
I realised,
and people forget about it.
well, like I said earlier, we've got Wingerden here on the screen. I didn't see the name correctly. I said Wintergun, which definitely isn't right because I've just said a completely different name. But I realised that I said it confidently, knowing full well that it's wrong. But it's Wingerden in P19 on the back of Hall.
It's a Germanic name, so is it not Wingerden?
Wingerden, oh, you're right. Yeah, you're probably Hall. I can do Hall. That's pretty easy. I have a few friends with the last name Hall.
You get Ewan saying Hal. Ian Howe.
Oh, but that's Ewan, and we love Ewan.
Do we though? He's northern.
I'm going with Hall, but he's defended well there, down through the middle sector, and Jan Wingerden in the Porsche hasn't been able to get through this yet, and he's still in P19.
Yeah, even Porsche. Is it Porsche? Porsche?
Oh.
So many things.
I'm going to start questioning life at this point.
Oh, we're having existential crises, and we're only 17. Actually, no, you're 18 now.
And so is Gardner.
One. Oh my goodness me, yeah, he's having. Well, he's not having an existential crisis. He's just having skill issues down on the track. Let's take a look as to what's happened. Is it a carbon copy of every mistake ever at the bus stop chicane? Yes, it is. Beautiful. To be fair, he's caught it well until he didn't. And no, to be fair, even when he didn't catch it well, he caught it well. That's not a skill issue. That is just avoiding one.
You could put that on on his socials, and people wouldn't think twice about it. He spelled that out fantastically. And Wingerden, I really have to think about that name now, is now really trying to get through on Hall. He might look for an inside line down to this chicane, but thinks better of it. And doesn't dive it late on the brakes. It's difficult to dive it late on the brakes, considering there isn't much braking involved through that chicane, but he's dropped back quite a fair bit through the chicane. He'll have to build himself back up towards Hall once again, and they have gained a few more positions thanks to drivers pitting on this last lap, and they are now up to 14th and 15th respectively. But of course, we have still got a few drivers near the front who haven't made a pit stop. Thompson, of course, is your net race leader, and the top 7, you see Gardner, Kerr, they come into the pit lane, but not everybody has completed their mandatory pit stop. But when they do, it'll be Thompson back in the lead and a few positions ahead of his championship rival.
Yeah, Well, this has been a nightmare of a race for Yuval Sharon, who, but yeah, is still out there on the circuit, but has only got probably 3 laps left in order to take that mandatory pit stop. Leparati has got Marco Violetto for company in the fight for what was P19. There is Yuval Sharon in out of the pit lane. There you could see Alexei Degani in his Mercedes drive past. He's in 6th place. He rejoins, and Bailey Thompson is going to be long ahead of him, I would imagine. That is not great for Sharon, but I suppose as long as it's not a 14-point gap in the championship, he still has hope in terms of the championship battle. So let's obviously wait and see. Let's see what Sharon can do. But in terms of out now, hey, I mean, his pace has been there. He's proved that with pole. He's proved that with the fast slap. But Thompson's race abilities are just, they're unrivaled. He is just too good as it stands. Ian Hall under pressure from Quinten van Wingerden or Luzerden, whichever one tickles your fancy more, whether you're Angie Pike or basically anyone else. Anyway, into this long right-hander, and they are fighting for 10th place. But you have to say that Bailey Thompson, his pure out-and-out pace has just been unrivaled. Degani has been the one in this race to be close, and even that warrants a 5-second gap.
Yeah, absolutely, and Thompson really has been very much in control, and Sharon will just have to hope for an absolute nightmare for Thompson next week, and it has to be the nightmare of all nightmares, you'd have thought. But, you know, it's the hope that kills you sometimes, and he'll just hope that won't be the case, as we see Mav Gardner, behind Pryor. I'm pretty sure of those two names coming through the back end of the circuit, 14th and 15th for them at the moment, but I believe they would probably be in a net 11th and 12th come the end of the pit stops. 3 yet to pit. And Ciala or Kiala, whichever you would like to prefer to use, is in the pit lane now once again. And it's going to promote everybody up a position as they fly through once again. 15 minutes of this race to go. And we are entering the final third of this race, if my math serves me correctly. And the moves have got to get done soon.
Yeah, the time is not on your side at all. It very much is a luxury that not very many people are going to be having, and you are going to have to make the most of each and every single one of your opportunities. Josh, you say Zachary, that is my name, so well done, you've managed to get it right. Quinten van Wingerden practically pushing Hall through the S's and now up the climb towards the bus stop chicane. That Porsche, of course, the flat 6, not too good in terms of a straight line ability, but neither too is that Aston Martin. Pulls out to the right-hand side, he gets squeezed, it's a tight line, and the Aston Martin swoops his way around that side in order to defend that 9th place. Nicely done from Hall. And Wingerden unable to move his way past in this portion of the race, but still plenty of opportunities left to come. Probably, I don't even want to do the maths, but probably, you know, about 6, maybe 7 more opportunities for him to go for that move, which, to be fair, at the moment sound like a fair few, but they're going to go fast.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think 13:20 means we are now in the final third. I did the math we were talking there. And I will be using Zachary in the future. But Blanchette, he looked like he was close. No, not a clue. So, yeah, that's useful knowledge now. But Sharon in P18, of course, the second of the 2 Sharons, Yotam that is trying to keep his position in front of Blanchette. He's done a good job of it. Of course, he had that mistake, didn't he, at this corner quite a while back in the race, and he's trying to work his way back through, as Eligna is also trying to work his way back through after his mistake. And this is not the first time we've seen him come up to the back of Zampieri in the BMW, and it may not even be the last, depending on what happens in the final 12.5 minutes or so. But he will hope to get through relatively quickly, and then be back in the top 20 once again.
Let's see. I mean, yeah, that mistake was, it was avoidable, but when you're pushing lap in, lap out, as Eligna has been doing, there is the points place given, and oh my goodness me, I cannot keep myself composed. The lack of professionalism in this broadcast is noticeable, and it's all thanks to YouTube chat and Bruno Zanchi, unfortunately lacking some talent in his run through the bus stop chicane. Again, I can guarantee exactly what mistake he's made. We're going to watch it. There it is. Runs wide, over the curb, bottoms out in a bit, mate. Bosh. It's that final curb. It just gets too many people. Whether they turn in too late for the first bit and then obviously subsequently run wide for the next, because you essentially have to treat it as one corner. You set, you know, yourself up to the right, into the left, and essentially you're just trying to straight line the final bit of the chicane as much as you can. If you mess up one part of that sequence, you've messed up the entirety of it. And basically, when you've messed up the first bit, you know what's coming for the last.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wish we had a tally of how many times it's happened, because it has happened a fair few times. But of course, you've just got to try and get that optimal line through there. Pryor looks like he's keen to get through, doesn't he, at the moment, but he did make that a little bit of a mistake, you could say, going very wide through the turn. I think it's turn 5, just after the chicane, but still see Van Vingerden trying to get through on hold, and it's just lap after lap of this at the moment. He's so close behind, but he's not yet getting any kind of momentum enough to get through. And I think Philip is starting to really gain on them now, as well, as we see, I think, Rorvik just on the left coming out of the pit lane. He's done very well, I think, in terms of how he's done in the pit phase, as we see them all now fly through turn 2 and 3. And I think Van Vingerden might have a better run this time around, but he's been this close for so long. Let's just see what he does this time around.
Is he close enough? Is the question. And how good of a defence has Hall got up? And, well, he doesn't even need any, because Vingerden was just like, nah, mate, you stay in front, whatever. And he's actually made the mistake. Is he going to bottom out over the curb? No. He did what everyone else should have done, which was slam on the brakes and bring yourself back onto sequence. Obviously, in doing so, he's lost about a second and a half in front, but at least he's still got his life, and he's not ended up like Jack Southfield, who unfortunately has found himself back into the pit lane. The pit window is now closed. We're into the final 10 minutes of this race. Everyone's ticked off their mandatory stop anyway, so no one's in trouble. And Philippe leading the way in the AMs, but if he gets caught up behind Vingerden, then Luca Ryan could very quickly become a threat.
Yeah, Ryan's could come out of the pit lane as well, so he's been on his own for quite a few laps, just been able to pump the lap times in without having to worry about what anybody else is doing at all, just about his own pace. But this is really turning into a 3-car battle at the moment. Hall really is dropping off the back. He's now nearly 10 seconds behind the car in front, which is James Wright in P8 as well. So there's lots going on. It's been Ashley Brown making the move on the inside and bouncing over the first part of that curb. How's he going to get through the final part? Safely is the answer, and he doesn't go for a spin. Some spin left, some spin right, but you want to be going dead straight round that right-hander, and he now has 26th place under control. But oh, that's a bit of a late send behind him. He's definitely not got it safely by any means.
Definitely not. Neither is Vingerden, as Philippe picks his way past through into the S's, and the Porsche is going to fight it around the outside. That's risky. It's bold. He's got the inside line though, and the aerodynamic capabilities of these GT3s really does scare me in their well, capacity to run side by side through that sequence of the circuit, but giving each other a very wide berth. Cleverly slow, has that flat 6, low centre of gravity. Porsche got the legs around the outside. No, it hasn't. Quinton Van Vingerden unfortunately losing the place to Philippe and down to 9th place. Manuel Leparati wants extra points in his bid for the AM Championship. Let's see what he can do. Nothing into the bus-up chicane, and yes, basically, guys, we do spend a lot of time reading the chat. Basically, Darragh's got nothing interesting to say, so while he's talking, I'm reading the chat, which, you know, you guys actually do have things interesting. I'm joking. No, I'm not. But anyway, yeah, they keep us interested, don't they, Darragh? They're something. They're definitely something, and they do warrant us reading the YouTube chat, because what else would we be doing with our lives?
Well, there's a long list, but absolutely not. Yeah, I mean, I've done too many races where the chat consists of absolutely nobody, so it's actually nice to have people, that chat just appearing every time that Zach starts speaking. I can go back and have a quick look.
Gosh, I like it. Nice.
Yeah, well, yeah, you said it, I've said it, you know, we're even now. But Leparati would like to be even with Stephen Pryor, if he can get through up into P15, because I think Pryor's got past him at some point in this race, if memory serves. And he'd like to get back through. But you've got to worry about the guys behind as well. Sharon, second of the Sharons, and Eligna as well. They're coming back relatively well. 18th and 19th for them after their mistakes. And we'll see how they can get back through. But there is a bit of a train forming now. 7 minutes to go. You'd have thought that we're looking at, what, 4 laps or so to go from here?
Yeah, let's go with that. Because I don't know. Let's see what Bailey Thompson's doing in terms of lap time. So 1 minute 43. We've got 6 minutes 40. Let's call it. So 6 minutes 40. Can you just divide by? So let's do that. That's not worked. To Google is not helpful. So we'll just go with 4 laps left to go because that's a good estimate. Philippe on the inside as they lap the McLaren of. That's not Blanchet, unless it is. Maybe it is Blanchet in the background. No, it's not. It's Fabio Ghiardi, the Italian, unfortunately not having a good day and getting in the way of the Nordes Racing Team Ferrari, I believe, of Luca Raya, who's now got Maurice Stryker for company in the background. And Luca Raya, the last thing he needs are lost points. And Maurice Stryker is looking to get himself up inside the top 10.
Yeah, absolutely, and it'll be a good result for him if he does, but Raya as well, fighting for that AM championship. He will want to get the positions himself, but Stryker round the outside. Didn't look like Raya fought that too hard, actually, through there. But Stryker now up into P10, and he will start trying to charge after that group of cars behind Hall, Ian Hall, who is a bit of a bottleneck at the moment, with Philip van Wingerden. And now Raya and Stryker getting to the back of them as well. So how long will this go on for? Probably to the end of the race is the answer, but who will come out on top will be important in terms of the AM Championship.
It will. Interestingly enough, Bailey Thompson and Yuval Sharon both have the fastest lap, according to the live timing. I don't know if that's probably a glitch. It definitely is a glitch, but peculiar nonetheless. Either way, Bailey Thompson has put in a fantastic lap time. Philippe on the inside of Hall, not quite able to find a way through. We've now got 3 cars, as we say, nose to tail. Oh, have we? Philippe cutting across the grass, and oh my goodness me, goes for a nice little nosedive to round it off, and then finds himself in the midst of a very hard-fought battle. Around the outside goes the Porsche. Philippe is able to stay in front. That was an eventful 5 seconds, Philippe, and I'm sure that's not the first time he's been able to say that.
Yeah, that was a bit of a bouncy landing through. I don't know how he's managed to keep the position as well on Van Wingerden as well. So that's seriously impressive. Dominic Illigner has got quite a few cars in front of him. I don't know how many off the position. A couple maybe lapped. There is one seemingly being lapped as he comes through. How many of these positions can he tick off with only a few minutes on the clock? We're looking at Bailey Thompson leading very comfortably, but the story's not been at the front during this race, or the entertainment at least, because the entertainment has been right at the back. Here we look at Rorvik. He pitted very late as well, and he is trying to... I think he's been overtaken by Kerr. Yes, he has. Kerr now up into P12, and that drops him 1 position behind Raya as well, which isn't the ideal situation to be in, with so little time to go. But this battle back here, this looks like it's going to be really kicking off soon.
Probably will, especially as time ticks closer to 0. The stakes get higher, the pressure cooks, and the tension rises. Manuel Leparati on the back of Pryor and Maurice Stryker with a drive-through penalty for track limits. Of course, you get 3 warnings, and on the 4th, you get yourself a drive-through penalty. Maurice Stryker has taken some liberties in his track limits, similar to Josh in his YouTube chat strikes. And unfortunately, both of them have reached the limit of consequence for that regard. And Maurice Stryker finds his way trundling down pit lane. He rejoins in 14th place, I should say. And that's not a good way to round off your race, because now he's not got any time at all in order to recover from it.
No, and he won't be terribly pleased with how that has gone for him. I think he's dropped a little bit further back, yeah, because Leparati was in P15, and Sharon, Illigner, Violetto, and is it probably Blanchet next? It might be Stryker, I'm not too sure, but that is a train that you don't really want behind you, is it, of those 3 drivers coming through, especially after they've made mistakes early on. Leparati, that is Sharon, looking to go down the inside, and I think he's got it very much through there, and Illigner will follow through as well. He will say thank you very much. I will snaffle up that P16 that is, as well, and he will now try and get after the rest of the cars in this train with time ticking down. But it's ticking down very nicely at the front for Thompson, because he is cruising at this moment.
Indeed so. And yeah, Andrew Pike, you are correct that the YouTube chat very much deserves an award. And thankfully, with 26 of us watching, we might have enough friends in order to win one. So that definitely is some positive signs going forward. But yeah, very much deserving. I'm not even sure if that's a category, but it might well be on the I would probably get fired if I mentioned the name award ceremony at the end of each year. Yeah. Anyway, carrying on before I say too much and dig myself even deeper. And anyway, Joachim Sharon on the back of Stuart Pryor in 14th place. A minute 32 left to go. So this is the penultimate lap. That was close. A little bit close for comfort. But with less than 2 laps left to go in this race, Darragh, this really is where desperation starts to sit in.
Absolutely, but this little battle for P15 Sharon in Ligna, they shouldn't really be in 15th and 16th, you feel, but yep, they are fighting over P15 with only about a lap and a half to go. Ligna will have that inside line through the chicane they fly, and it will be him who takes the position in his Audi, and really hanging on to the car is Sharon, and Leparati might try and come back at him, but no avail this time. But Ligna still looking confident. If it wasn't for that big mistake that he made, you've got to say that he'd be very much looking at a top 10 at the moment, especially as Ian Hall is bottling pretty much everybody up. The gap now 13, nearly and a half seconds up to right. But here comes Ligna once again. He gets past Pryor, and that's another position, P14. He might get Gardner. Rorik's a little bit up the road, isn't he?
He is, and well, 13th is probably going to be the cap for Ligna, who has now got Pryor on the inside. I'm going to get ratted out by Stuart Pryor. That is fine. That is absolutely great. Right, it's fine. Joachim Sharon to the outside of Pryor, who prior to this was looking forward to maybe get himself past Dominic Ligna, but he's now looking backwards to Sharon. Leparati as well in the mix onto the final lap of the race. And there we go again. Handsome Stu with the absolute comedy in the YouTube chat. Yeah, he did ask who was that, and you deep faked it. It's a deep fake. Anything I say that could get me in trouble, very much is a deep fake on these streams, because I didn't say it. I don't know. You didn't hear anything, Darragh? Did you? No,
I don't even know what you're talking about. In fairness,
exactly.
I know nothing. I really don't understand anything. Exactly.
Apart
thank
from,
you.
Apart from your French A-level.
Apart from my French A-level, indeed. So, I mean, Sharon is closer to Garni. This is the final lap, of course. But they're still not done because Sharon is less than half a second behind Degani. Don't rule out a final corner send from the Ferrari. I mean, he needs the position for the championship. Just whether or not he can get it or not will be critical for him. But Thompson's going to come around the final corner. What a result this will be for him. He's dominated today.
He has. And he weaves his way across the line. It's yet another victory for Bailey Thompson. It's a shared fastest lap, and, well, he spins himself across the line in celebration. He lands facing the right way as well. Degani and Sharon fighting to the line, and that has just caught Degani off. That was some way to end the race, let's put it that way. But Thompson, yet another victory etched into the history books of the TSRC, and what an amazing performance for him. One step closer to taking the championship, one hand on the trophy, it must be said, with a huge lead going into Kyalami. We wait for the rest of the pack to round off. We've got Hall and Quinten van Wingerden continuing their battle out in front, or a little behind in that battle for 7th. And, well, this is just... what a race that was, in fairness, Darragh. I think it was you, and to be fair, you probably shouldn't have said Yuval Sharon, because a P3, to be fair, I was about to say it's an absolute stinker for him, but it was still a P3 with a shared fastest lap. Like, that is not bad, and I suppose is probably the biggest compliment that you can get in the most twisted sense, saying that P3 is a stinker of a race.
Yeah, absolutely. And he has done well. I mean, it's disappointing for him to be 1/10 of a second off of P2 on the flag, but I think a lot of credit as well has got to go to the P8 man, Ian Hall, or maybe even P7, because he defended so valiantly through that race. I mean, he should not have finished where he did. He dropped so much time to the cars in front, but he managed to hold off everyone behind him, and he managed to keep P7, so much credit to him, as well as the likes of Ligna, who rose back up to P13 after that spin. Who knows where he would have got? Probably P7 by the line, but what a race that was. And it did live up to the billing, really.
Yes, I didn't mean to laugh at you, Darragh. It was Andrew Pike showcasing his very good French. Bailey Thompson takes the win after 23 laps of racing action ahead of Degani and Sharon on the podium. Cecily and Zanchi 4 and 5, with Wright, Hall, Wingerden, Philippe and Raya the top 10. Philippe and Rye, of course, 1 and 2 in the AM Championship. Then comes Graham Kerr, Thomas Rorvik, Dominic Aligna with a fight back, a fall back, a comeback in this race. Ends up 13th. Matt Gardner 14th, with Stuart Pryor rounding off the top 15. Then comes Leparati, Yotam Sharon, Marco Violetto, Blanchet, Zampieri, the top 20. The final of the point scorers. Gameiro and Chiala in behind in P21 and P22 with a number of drivers in behind that, of course, all the way down to Marco Borelli in P33. Of course, behind Chiala, you've got the likes of Stryker, McGowan, Murtaj, Cisco, the last of those that finished on the lead lap. Then you go to Brown, Miller, Passanisi, Ghiardi, D'Or, Southfield and Borelli, all of those that didn't quite make it to the checker flag in good time. Jack Southfield put it down to a long pit stop. I think it was a little bit more than that. But yeah, what a race, and a nice welcome to the TSRC. It's been nice to have you, Darragh.
Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. It's rare coming from you, so I'll definitely take that. But yeah, it's been great. Thank you for having me, and I hopefully, I mean, I'll be tuning in next week. I'll be joining in the chat, that's for sure. I can't miss out on that, because that is now what I'm looking forward to next Thursday. As well as the championship decider here, because it could be a very good evening for Bailey Thompson in 7 days' time, which is it's likely to be. But I mean, if it's a good evening for Yuval Sharon, it's going to be an even better evening, because I think he'll go into that final round not necessarily expecting to win the title, but he will absolutely take it if he does.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. I think he has to accept it, go into Kyalami with an open mind, and just win. You know, do everything you can do, and then let everything else fall into place. What will be, will be. Thank you to everyone that's been watching along on the Sim Racing Collective YouTube channel. Of course, apologies again for the technical difficulties, but this will be uploaded to the JP Broadcasting YouTube channel as well. In probably at some point either later today or tomorrow, whichever one James gets round to first. And it's been an amazing penultimate round to what has been an amazing season. We battled our way around the globe. We started out at Spa. We battled our way through the Nürburgring, Imola, Donington Park, Watkins Glen, and in a week's time we'll take to Kyalami, the home of the first ever round of the Sim Racing Collective PC GT3 Series, and it rounds off our Titanic Championship battle, both the pros and the AMs yet to be decided. My name has been Zach Sweeney Darragh Thacker, been alongside me in the commentary booth. We've had Kieran Sharps pointing the cameras, capturing all of the bus stop spins today. It's been an honour to talk you through the action here today. In a week's time, of course, I'll have Kelsey Gill back in the commentary booth with me. We'll be raring to go to round off an amazing season. In the meantime, take care and a very warm goodbye.